November 2nd, 1944, 3:47 p.m., over occupied Czechoslovakia. Lieutenant Bruce Carr glances down at his oil pressure gauge and immediately knows the truth. The needle is dead, not falling, gone. Black smoke pours out from the nose of his P-51 Mustang, thick and oily, smearing across the canopy. The Merlin engine howls in protest, metal scraping metal, a mechanical scream that every fighter pilot recognizes. 30 seconds ago, Carr was leading a strafing run against a German airfield. Now he is flying a dying aircraft through a sky filled with flak. An 88mm shell fragment has torn through the engine compartment and severed the oil line. Without lubrication, the Rolls-Royce Merlin will seize in less than 90 seconds. When that happens, the propeller becomes dead weight. 400 pounds of spinning metal locking solid. The Mustang will stop being an airplane and become a brick. Carr doesn't argue with the math. He doesn't hesitate. He slides the canopy back, rolls the aircraft inverted, and drops out. The cold hits instantly. At 8,000 feet, the air is thin and brutal. Seconds stretch. Then the parachute snaps open, jerking his body hard enough to knock the breath from his lungs. Below him, enemy territory spreads in every direction. Forests, fields, roads crawling with German patrols. He is 200 miles behind German lines. No radio, no survival kit, no food, no water. The only weapon he carries is a .45 caliber pistol with 7 rounds. It is November in Central Europe. Nights drop below freezing. The forests are damp. The ground is unforgiving. The numbers are merciless. American pilots shot down over occupied territory have less than a 1 in 4 chance of making it back to Allied lines. The rest spend the war in prison camps or disappear into graves without names. Bruce Ward Carr was born on January 28, 1924, in Union Springs, New York. There was nothing extraordinary about his childhood. No military lineage, no elite background. But there was one thing that set him apart. At 15 years old in 1939, Bruce Carr learned how to fly. That year matters. In September 1939, Germany invaded Poland. World War II began. A farm kid in upstate New York could not know where the world was headed, but he could feel it. Something was changing. Aviation was no longer a hobby, it was becoming a weapon. Carr didn't learn in a military program. He didn't learn in a classroom. A local crop duster named Earl let the teenager sit in the cockpit of his biplane. One summer afternoon was enough. By the time Carr turned 16, he had logged more stick time than most Army Air Forces cadets entering training. On September 3, 1942, Carr enlisted in the United States Army Air Forces. He was 18 years old. When his application crossed his instructor's desk, fate intervened again. The man reviewing his file was Earl, the same pilot who had taught him to fly years earlier. Earl saw the flight hours, 240 logged before the Army ever touched him. Carr was fast-tracked. By August 1943, he was a flight officer. By February 1944, he was in England. His unit was the 380th Fighter Squadron, 363rd Fighter Group, 9th Air Force. His aircraft was the P-51 Mustang. The Mustang was not just another fighter. It was the fighter that changed the war. With drop tanks, it could fly more than 1,600 miles, far enough to escort American bombers from England to Berlin and back. It could reach speeds over 430 miles per hour and climb above 40,000 feet. 6.5 caliber Browning machine guns sat in its wings, nearly 2,000 rounds of ammunition ready to tear apart anything in front of it. Before the Mustang arrived in force, daylight bombing was a slaughter. In October 1943, American forces lost 60 bombers in a single mission over Schweinfurt. Without long-range escort, the B-17s and B-24s were targets. The Mustang changed everything. German pilots called it the long-nosed bastard. Luftwaffe losses mounted faster than training schools could replace them. The skies over Europe began to tilt. Bruce Carr fell in love with the aircraft immediately. The cockpit fit him. The controls responded instantly. The power was intoxicating. He named his Mustang Angel's Playmate. He had no idea that within months he would be sitting in a cockpit marked with German lettering and a swastika on the tail. On March 8, 1944, Carr entered combat for the first time. He spotted a Messerschmitt Bf 109 and chased it at treetop level, through forests, at speeds over 400 miles per hour. It was reckless, it was dangerous, it was pure Carr. When the German pilot panicked and pulled up too low, his parachute failed to deploy. The aircraft crashed. Carr returned to base expecting praise. Instead, he was reprimanded. The kill didn't count. The pilot technically killed himself. Carr was transferred. Where others saw recklessness, Carr saw opportunity. Where others saw limits, he saw suggestions. By May 1944, Carr joined the 353rd Fighter Squadron, 354th Fighter Group, the first Mustang group in Europe. These were the best pilots flying the best aircraft. Carr belonged there. After D-Day, the kills began to stack. June, July, September. On September 12, 1944, Carr destroyed 3 German fighters in 3 minutes and escorted his wingman safely home instead of chasing more victories. He was awarded the Silver Star. By October 29th, he was an ace. 4 days later, he was falling through the sky over Czechoslovakia. Carr hit the ground hard. His ankle twisted violently on impact, not broken, but badly sprained. He buried the parachute under leaves. German patrols would be searching soon. They always did. Carr made a decision that would define everything that followed. Instead of heading towards Allied lines, he moved deeper into enemy territory. The Germans would search outward, expecting escape. They would not expect him to move towards danger. And Carr knew something else. He had just attacked an airfield. That airfield would have food, water, shelter, and airplanes. For 3 days he moved through forests, traveling at night, hiding by day. Hunger became pain. Pain became weakness. His body burned muscle just to stay warm. On the 4th day, he decided to surrender. Then he saw the fighter.
Late afternoon, day 4. Bruce Carr lies motionless in the trees overlooking the German airfield. He is weak, exhausted, and running on instinct more than strength. The decision to surrender is already made in his mind. Walk to the gate at first light, hands up. Let the Luftwaffe take him. Prison is better than freezing to death alone. Then he notices something that stops that plan cold. 80 yards from his position, partially hidden beneath camouflage netting, sits a Focke-Wulf FW-190. 2 German mechanics work beneath portable lights. Carr watches carefully. They are unhurried, methodical. He sees them check the fuel levels, full tanks. They run the engine. The BMW 801 radial roars to life, a deep mechanical thunder that vibrates the ground. They cycle the propeller, check the magnetos, complete what looks like a full pre-flight inspection. Then they shut the engine down. They secure the cockpit, and they walk away. The aircraft is ready to fly. Carr doesn't move. He doesn't breathe. His mind begins working faster than his body ever could. He has never flown a German aircraft. He doesn't speak German. He has no checklist, no training manual, no idea how the systems work. But he knows airplanes. 500 combat hours, hundreds of landings, hundreds of takeoffs. Every aircraft obeys the same laws of physics. Throttle, stick, rudder, lift, power. The surrender plan disappears. Carr waits until 3 a.m. The airfield is quiet, a skeleton crew. No movement near the revetment, no guards in sight. He breaks cover and runs. 80 yards of open ground. If anyone looks his way, he's finished. He crosses it in 40 seconds, staying low, his injured ankle screaming with every step. The FW-190 looms larger than he expected, nearly a ton heavier than a Mustang, thick armor glass, a massive radial engine dominating the nose. Germany's premier fighter. First deployed in 1941, the FW-190 shocked the Allies. It outperformed early Spitfires so badly that Britain rushed new variants into production. German pilots called it the Butcher Bird. Allied pilots called it trouble. Carr climbs onto the wing. The canopy is unlocked. He slides it back and drops into the cockpit. Nothing is familiar. Every label is in German. Gothic script covers the instrument panel. The cockpit is tight, smaller than the Mustang. His knees press against the panel. But the control stick feels right in his hand. The throttle is on the left. Some things are universal. Carr has about 4 hours before sunrise. He uses every second. He studies the layout, identifies gauges by position. Airspeed top left, altimeter near center, engine instruments clustered to the right. He traces wiring, finds fuel selectors, magneto switches, prop controls. The starter is the problem. In the Mustang, it's electrical. In the FW-190, Carr has no idea. On the right side of the cockpit, he finds a T-shaped handle with German writing. It looks promising. He pulls it. Nothing. He pushes it forward. A mechanical whine fills the cockpit, an inertia starter winding up like a giant spring. Carr lets it spin. 10 seconds, 20. Then he pulls the handle. The engine coughs, then explodes into life. The BMW 801 roars so loudly it feels violent. 1,700 horsepower at idle. The sound carries across the airfield. Every German within a mile will hear it. Carr doesn't have time to think. He shoves the throttle forward. The FW-190 lurches ahead. The tail lifts almost immediately. This aircraft wants to fly. Through the darkness, Carr aims between two hangars. Figures appear, shouts, arms pointing. 60 miles per hour, 70. At 90, Carr pulls back. The fighter leaps into the air, clearing the hangars by what feels like inches. He's airborne, in a stolen German fighter. 200 miles behind enemy lines. Now comes the escape. Carr retracts the landing gear by feel, finds the lever, hears the reassuring thunk. The aircraft accelerates. He identifies the compass and turns west, then southwest toward France. Altitude is dangerous. Radar, fighters, flak. So, Carr does what he knows best. He drops low. 50 feet above the trees, 280 miles per hour. The forest becomes a green blur beneath the wings. One mistake means death. But at this altitude, radar can't see him, flak can't track him. For 45 minutes, Carr flies west. The sun rises behind him. Forests give way to farmland. Farmland gives way to scarred battlefields. He crosses the front lines, and immediately comes under fire. Allied gunners see a German fighter screaming towards them at treetop height. They do what they're trained to do. They open fire. Tracers fill the air. Rifles crack. Machine guns hammer. Carr is being shot at by his own side. He has no radio, no markings to identify himself. The black crosses are still on the wings, the swastika on the tail. He drops lower. 20 feet. Hedge hopping. Dust and debris explode beneath the propeller. Civilians dive for cover. American soldiers fire everything they have. The FW-190 takes hits. Carr hears them, feels them, but the aircraft keeps flying. He spots his airfield. Home. He lines up for landing. Then the final problem reveals itself. The landing gear won't come down. Carr pulls the lever. Nothing. Pumps it. Nothing. He searches for an emergency system he doesn't understand. Below him, anti-aircraft crews are loading heavy guns. They are seconds from destroying him. Carr makes the only decision left. He will belly land. He lowers the flaps, cuts power, and brings the FW-190 down onto the grass beside the runway. The aircraft hits hard, slides hundreds of yards, throws mud and debris into the air, then stops. Bruce Carr is alive.
The FW-190 sits silent in the grass, mud dripping from its belly. steam rising from the damaged engine. Bruce Carr doesn't move at first. He waits. He listens. Then the shouting starts. Military police surround the aircraft within seconds, rifles raised, fingers tight on triggers. They're expecting a German pilot, a prisoner, maybe a fight. The canopy slides back. A mud-covered American in a torn flight suit climbs onto the wing. "I'm Captain Carr of this goddamn squadron." No one believes him. Carr has been missing for 4 days, officially listed as shot down, possibly captured, possibly dead. And now he's standing on a German fighter that just belly-landed on their airfield. The rifles stay trained on him. A staff car arrives at speed. Colonel George Bickle, commanding officer of the 354th Fighter Group, steps out. He looks at the destroyed FW-190, the armed MPs, the filthy pilots standing on the wing. He stares at Carr for a long moment, then asks the only reasonable question: "Where in the hell have you been, and what have you been doing now?" The story spreads fast, faster than Carr can keep up with it. Across the airfields, across the squadrons, a pilot shot down behind enemy lines, 4 days missing, returned flying a stolen German fighter. No American in the European theater has ever done it. Carr becomes a legend overnight. But the war doesn't pause for legends. 5 months later, April 2nd, 1945, near Schweinfurt, Germany, First Lieutenant Bruce Carr leads a flight of 4 P-51 Mustangs on a reconnaissance mission. They're cruising at 15,000 feet when Carr spots movement above them, high, too organized to be friendly. He counts quickly, then counts again. 60 aircraft. Messerschmitt's Bf-109s, Focke-Wulf FW-190s, stacked from 18,000 to 25,000 feet. The latest variants, G-10s, D-9s, fast, well-armed. 4 American fighters. Standard doctrine is clear: disengage, report, survive. 4 against 60 is suicide. The Germans have altitude, numbers, and position. Every tactical manual ever written says the same thing. Bruce Carr has never been particularly interested in manuals. He keys the radio. Engaging. His wingmen don't argue. They've flown with Carr before. They know what that word means when he says it. The 4 Mustangs climb straight into the German formation. It makes no sense, and that's exactly why it works. The Germans aren't expecting an attack. They're flying loose, conserving fuel, likely preparing to intercept bombers. 4 American fighters charging directly into them creates confusion, delay, uncertainty. Carr uses it. He slips into the rear of the formation, lines up behind a Bf-109, fires. The German aircraft explodes. Carr rolls, switches targets, fires again. An FW-190 takes hits and tumbles toward the ground. The formation begins to scatter. Pilots break away, unsure how many Americans are attacking or from where. Carr keeps moving. Fire, break, reposition. Another kill, then another. In 3 minutes, Bruce Carr shoots down 5 German fighters. His wingmen destroy 10 more. 15 German aircraft fall out of the sky. 4 American pilots, 0 losses. When ammunition runs low, Carr leads his flight home. The surviving German fighters scatter across the countryside, broken and confused. A week later, on April 9, 1945, Carr is awarded the Distinguished Service Cross, second only to the Medal of Honor. The citation states that he completely disregarded his own safety, attacking an enemy force with overwhelming numerical and positional superiority, personally destroying 5 aircraft. He becomes the last American ace in a day in the European theater. By the end of World War II, Bruce Carr has flown 172 combat missions. He has 14 or 15 confirmed aerial victories, depending on the record. He is 21 years old.
The war ends. Carr stays in uniform. He flies with the Acrojets, America's first jet aerobatic demonstration team. Then Korea, flying F-86 Sabres on 57 combat missions. He commands a fighter squadron. Then Vietnam. In Vietnam, Colonel Bruce Carr flies 286 combat missions in F-100 Super Sabres. Close air support, strafing runs. The same dangerous work, decades later, in a faster aircraft over a different battlefield. 3 wars, 3 generations of fighter aircraft, over 500 combat missions. He retires in 1973.
April 25th, 1998. St. Cloud, Florida. Bruce Ward Carr dies of prostate cancer at the age of 74. He is buried at Arlington National Cemetery, Section 64, Grave 6922. His headstone faces rows of men who fought in every American war since the Revolution. Across the river stands the Lincoln Memorial. Nearby rests the tomb of the unknown soldier. The stone lists his rank: Colonel, United States Air Force. It lists his decorations: Distinguished Service Cross, Silver Star, Legion of Merit, Distinguished Flying Cross with clusters, Air Medal with clusters, Purple Heart. It lists his wars: World War II, Korea, Vietnam. It does not mention the 4 days in a frozen forest. It does not mention the stolen fighter. It does not mention the belly landing without landing gear, the commanding officer demanding to know where he had been. Some stories do not fit on headstones. There are 2 ways to tell the story of Bruce Carr. The first is the legend: the American pilot shot down deep behind enemy lines who walked onto an active Luftwaffe airfield, climbed into a German fighter he had never flown, figured out its controls by instinct and experience, and flew 200 miles back to Allied territory while both sides tried to shoot him down. The second is the official record: the ace with 15 victories, the Silver Star recipient, the Distinguished Service Cross winner, the officer who led 4 aircraft against 60 and won. Both are true. But neither explains why this story still matters. In November 1944, Bruce Carr was alone, injured, starving, unarmed, stranded behind enemy lines with no realistic chance of escape. Every rational calculation pointed to surrender. Every survival manual would have recommended it. Carr looked at the same situation and saw something else. He saw an opportunity. He didn't speak German. He didn't know the systems. He didn't know the procedures, but he understood flight. He understood machines, and he understood that limits are often assumed long before they are real. 4 months later, over Germany, he faced another impossible situation. 4 fighters against 60. Every tactical rule demanded retreat. Survival required caution. Carr chose attack. 15 German aircraft never returned. That pattern followed him throughout his life. 3 wars, 3 generations of aircraft, propellers, early jets, supersonic fighters. He adapted. He learned. He kept flying. In 1997, 1 year before his death, Bruce Carr flew one last time. Kermit Week's Fantasy of Flight Museum invited him to an air show in Florida. Carr arrived in a P-51 Mustang. His Mustang, maintained in flying condition. The same aircraft type he had flown more than 50 years earlier. He came in low, fast, 300 knots, 50 feet above the ground. The same approach profile he had used decades earlier while flying a stolen German fighter into a French airfield under friendly fire. The crowd watched a 73-year-old man throw a World War II fighter through maneuvers that challenged pilots half his age. Loops,
rolls, high G turns that pressed him into the seat hard enough to gray out younger men. When he landed, someone asked him what he had been thinking up there. Carr shrugged. Same thing I always think. What's the airplane capable of? What am I capable of? Let's find out. That is the Bruce Carr story. Not just the stolen fighter, not just the kills, not the medals or the promotions. It is the story of a man who refused to accept that his options were limited to the ones in front of him. A pilot who looked at impossible odds and didn't ask how to survive them. He asked something else. What else can I do?